Let me say a couple of things about him, namely by virtue of just reading his bio. Josh will graduate this spring from PCC's Integral Ecology MA track, where he has studied transforming relationships with home. He has a number of creative projects in the works post-graduation and has the word love in ancient hieroglyphics tattooed on his back.
Yeah. Woo! Let's see it!
So if I know anything about Josh, he will show it to you right away. And I can also assure you that things might just get a little crazy in there. Maybe not. We'll see. Joshua Halpern.
I'm going to put on the earphone. That's him, right?
Woo!
Yep. Good?
Louder!
Sexy.
Very sexy.
Find my
Project.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, beautiful.
I love you guys. This was amazing, of course. And I'm just deeply grateful and moved by all of these. It was just now, I want to continue in the spirit a bit of being present to that, some of that shadow and that dark and that fear and in the context of sort of radical love and being present to the changes that are taking place on the planet right now. You know, as Darren said, I'm about to graduate. I've been here 3 years. And a lot of what we've learned here is about depletion and loss of aquifers and water tables, loss of arable soil and topsoil, and loss of species on sort of unprecedented scales in our whole time as humans on the planet. And last year, a year ago at this Cosmology conference, one of the things that I talked about in my talk on transformative love was this great gift of the resource of love, which is always replenishable, always regenerative. I promise you, I will not run out of love for you guys. You know, I could run out of a lot of things before I stop loving. And I think that applies in all these different scenarios, and I think that's one of the important things to pay attention to, and hopefully I'll bring some awareness to it today, of the potential for love in all these different scenarios, whether things are going well or badly, whether you're dealing with small scales or large scales. So I'm going to start with a poem, which the title of my talk is taken from, which I wrote in 2012, last year. It's called Waiting for Things to Get Worse. At the window, this is a good way to start it actually, because we're going to go to the window once I'm done with this poem. Those of you will. Okay, waiting for things to get worse. At the window, the temperature plummets, rockets, subjects of dread duck and dart in darkness. Shimmers of shadows outside the house. On the other side, the old pain. Pain, P-A-N-E. Wait. Please. I have stuff to do, to offer. So much stuff. We drift and grip. Draw lines, forget our songs. Lulled, lonely and lecherous, we wait. I can't possibly learn all of your names. Ruin, resilience, rhinoceros. Posterity's pronunciations are too pure for my throat. I linger in liminal time, savoring the lie of saving the earth, before the knowledge of loss becomes the language in which my choices are cursed. I'll blind monsters with my screens, and if my screens die or come alive, I'll have recourse to streams, Rivers of relatives will hold fast our tribe through the floods, and for a while nourish, lament, and touch each other. Shatterers, scatter your fragments. I see through holes, holes with a W. I see through holes, I merge the holy abyss. When our lights fail, we'll count stars. When our aquifers empty, we'll drink love. It will probably be tomorrow morning. I would wake up early just in case. Swallowed by the superstorms of gas giants. Sea and sky coming at the same time, moving from taupe to mauve to maroon over eons, seeking sexual encounters with similarly experienced storm eyes. We'll time this too. Doesn't it feel good to feel peaceful? Responsibility slides like oil through a pipe. So, if you would accompany me to the window, I want to draw our attention to what's happening outside. Because we sit in this room quite often, staring at one in front of us. And it's worth contemplating because this landscape changed really fast to become looking like this. Everybody have a space, get a space along the window. Okay. So what's amazing about this direction, we're looking southeast, is that there was an entire section of bay here called Mission Bay, which is no longer here. It was filled in the 1900s. And across the way is Potrero Hill, as the earth slopes up directly due this direction. You're orienting with me. And it was pretty sparsely populated. The Ohlone is the name of the larger family of tribes that were living here. The particular group that was in this neighborhood were the Yalamu, and they spoke the Miwok language, which spread from Big Sur up through the San Francisco Peninsula. And it was only 2 generations before all of that tribe was gone at the introduction of the Europeans. Across the bay there. And so before this, any human building was here, the bay extended to about, so there's the highway 101, you can't quite see it. If you were 1 floor up, like for instance in the PCC office, you have the same view but a little more expansive. So there's a highway coming across our field of vision. Just maybe a block or so on the other side of the highway would have been the coast of the bay. And on our left would have been saltwater marshes, and on our right would have been a whole stream leading towards the mission. And so this was all pretty soft, wet land in front of us. It was only with the gold rush that the whole city started exploding. And across the way there, that was Spanish territory originally, and then Mexican. And then there was a number of years with disputes about who owned that land and who got to call it, whether it was part of the United States or not. They eventually built a bridge across the bay. There were actually, once you had workers there were 4, between here and over the Bernal Heights, there were 4 distinct neighborhoods of different hills, Scotch Hill, Russian Hill, Potrero Hill, and Irish Hill. Irish Hill was actually demolished to fill in the bay. There were actually, Irish people there. It's one of the interesting things is it was pretty sparsely populated before the earthquake, and then the earthquake in 1906. There were a bunch of refugees fleeing the fires down here, setting up camp up along that hill. Once they built the bridge across, once they filled it in, it became much closer to, much more accessible. There were housing projects put in that were the second time the Supreme Court of the United States was involved in that neighborhood. The first time was the disputes over whose land it was. This beautiful church to our left with the golden tops sits empty now. It was built in 1913, so exactly 100 years ago. And Potrero Hill got super a great big population of LGBTQ people moving in the 60s, and then in the 90s it became super .com gentrified, and here we are, give or take, right? And we're shielded here and over there from the fog and the harsh temperatures of the Pacific by the highlands over there. And we happen to be living in a moment here where we can look out on this landscape from this height at this perspective and see what we see. And it's undoubtedly going to shift. The entire bay has risen and fallen 4 to 7 times over the last 500,000 years. And when I say risen to fallen, I mean gone down to a trickle of a creek in the middle of the bay, with the land extending out to the Herman Islands 4 miles out that way. And then viewing the bay again, and then draining. And so there's a reasonable chance to expect that this bay that we've covered up with all this might come back, because we're right. There's a fault line right out past the coast. There's a fault line like a few blocks from my house in Berkeley. And we have this building sits on fill, which is prone to liquefy in the event of strong shaking. So what I want to do is, in the imaginings of how this place has changed, I want to also imagine how it might change over the next 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 100 years. What you might picture out there, if the freeway system is still being used for instance, gas-powered automobiles, sort of unlikely because we're not going to have much of that left. If these buildings are just sitting there, or if they might be growing food, might be a way to do it. There's, if we're grouping ourselves with the same considerations, the same understandings of our relationships with our neighbors. And over the course of history, what I'm curious about, and I'm always happy if you guys want to shout out answers or you just want to linger with it, is where love is. Right? Where in the struggles, this city has seen a lot of its fair share of struggles for justice, ecological reckonings with what we've done with the bay. Where's the love? Where's the love going to continue out into the future? There's places where if you gather for a meal, that you find love. There's places where if you pause and look up at a bird, you see love. If you look out at these clouds, like the difference between the fog and the clouds over by the Pacific, and those clouds over there, over the bay and over the Oakland and Berkeley hills, there's all these different neighborhoods that have their own stories, that have their own people that love those little places tucked into their own special spot in the bay. And so love exists in all these different scales, and I want to draw just a quick little more attention to scales, because I think it's really important as we go into these changes ahead to be present to scales in a number of ways. One is that being present to the scale of what's possible. I wrote this in a paper to Sean last week, but if saving the world, which I think is not the right way to think about it, of course, but if it was just up to me, we would not work. It would not work out. It would not be enough. I am soft and slow, occasionally self-absorbed. And if you guys can't depend on me that much, but if we're all involved in community, we might have a shot, we might scale up to the task at hand, but we're out of control of that. I don't get to control all of that. I don't get to decide. I can do my own little part every day when I wake up, and then I go to sleep. And when I wake up, that's the case in their experience of time, and to the people that will maybe stand here looking out at this expanse in another 30 years. We all wake up in the morning, do what we can. And then another portion of scales is, so I brought some of these flowers. I'm going to pull your attention away from the beautiful landscape for a moment. This is a collection of what's blooming in my neighborhood this morning. And what's nice about still having bee populations around is that they make honey with these blossoms. And I work for a honey farm, so I brought a couple honeys. So I have spoons here that are clean, and a bag you can put empty spoons in. This one we do as a new batch every week to catch whatever's blooming. So all of this stuff, which is blooming this morning, some of it might be. And the bees, in their seeking out the flowers and they're, trying to taste the different ones, I think there might be love in there a little bit. In the way that they express that union, I love some of these honeys. I will remember some of these honeys and the distinctions, even if bees stop pollinating and there's no more honey. I will still remember it, and that's where it will exist in my memory. But for now, we have lots of honey. We can love it up. Do whatever you want with it. It's for external use as well. And then in terms of scales, I also want to pull back to, we have this amazing stellar experience later in the year, which is this Iron comet, which are around late November, I think November 28th, it's a sun grazer, so it's shooting towards the sun through our whole solar system. It's going to go slingshot. So it's approaching the sun, and then we don't know what will happen. We don't know what will happen, but it's possible that what will happen is it will get so close to the sun that it will melt in just the right way to become super bright and have a super long tail, so that potentially could stretch across the entire sky and be brighter than the full moon. This is possible. This is one possibility in November that we will all get to see whether it will happen. And it seems to me another possible expression of love. What is the perspective of that comet, this icy ball moving through icy space, seeing this source of heat in the distance, and knowing that it's going to be changed by the encounter, and that change actually spreading across the whole cosmos, so that two people in love, arm in arm, looking up at the sky in November, might see this experience as a sign of their love. There's a lot of ways that love manifests regardless of the circumstances of what's happening in our culture that is unfortunately dying in certain ways. It is, right? But love is regenerative. Love allows for growth and birth and newness and expression and creativity, as we all know, as we've seen all day. Okay, one last thing. Everybody gather in a circle if you're willing on the floor. Oh, a circle, yeah, so you're next to me. This is okay. Pull it in so that you're all next to each other. You guys look great. Nice circle. Okay, what I want you to do, and this is real simple. It's not too complicated. Oh, good. Yeah, this is what we encourage. Okay. Anybody else want to? You're all welcome. It's an easygoing circle. All I want you to do, because we're talking about, I think a lot of us might be looking out around us and have the sense of this is not going to be around much longer. That whether or not you're bringing it to the point of this is as good as it's going to get, as comfortable as we're going to get, and things will be harder, whether you're just sort of imagining earthquakes, whether you're imagining all the things that we're studying that I'm about to get a master's degree in. I think that it's really important to be present to what exists throughout that, and to tap into, have reserves of reassurance. So what I want to do is boost up a little bit of our reserves of reassurance. So everybody turn to your left. And if you're willing and everybody's comfortable, place your hand behind the heart of the person next to you. Oh, great. Okay. And all I want you to do is send love and reassurance to the space around this person's heart. And there might come a time in our lives when we are not feeling so reassured, where we are not feeling surrounded by community who cares about love, who cares about the earth. There might be times when we're more scared and lonely, upset, freaked. And we might be able to go back to this day. I remember at that time when there were 30 of us in a big circle, and the world was beautiful, and I knew that there was love. And that love doesn't go away. It fills your cells, fills your lungs, it fills your life. Okay, thanks. And feel free to eat some honey.